Hey guys, tonight we slip into the damp sheets of 18th century London. And trust me, they're not just damp from water. It's a city of powdered wigs and chamber pots, but under every feather mattress, a hidden war is crawling to life. You lie down in a dim Georgian bedroom, candles flicker, floorboards groan, and from the corner of your vision, something scuttles. Welcome to bedbug territory. The plaster's cracking. The wallpaper peels like sunburned skin. You're not sure whether that smell is mildew, spilled rum, or the ghost of 50 previous tenants. Honestly, it's probably all three, and you're the main course tonight. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your city and local time. Let's see who's still awake across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You close your eyes, but not for long. There's a prickle, then another. You scratch, then slap, then sit up entirely. And yes, something tiny and red is doing a victory lap across your collarbone. Georgian London didn't just have bedbugs, it had a bedbug epidemic, especially in the overcrowded slums and creaky townhouses that Londoners politely called home. You can't blame the bugs, really. London in the 1740s was a buffet, filth piled up in alleyways. People bathed once a fortnight if they were fancy. Linen wasn't changed so much as layered. Whole families crammed into single rooms where crumbs, sweat, and warmth lured every pest this side of the Thames. It was bedbug paradise. And as the saying went back then, if you hadn't been bitten, you probably hadn't been to London. Tonight you're sleeping, or trying to, at a boarding house just off Fleet Street. You know, where the rent is cheap and the bugs are ambitious. The mattress is stuffed with straw and horsehair. The pillow a lump of cotton wool memories. No springs, just lumps. And sounds? Oh yes, creaks from upstairs, drips from somewhere unseen, and the occasional unplaceable thump. You hope it's not the rats again. Beside your bed sits a chipped bottle of naval-grade rum. No, not for sipping, well, not only for sipping. You dab it behind your ears and across the seams of your shirt, for some advice you heard from the landlord. Keeps the buggers at bay, he said, winking. You didn't ask whether he meant insects or humans. You wonder how you got here. You're an apprentice tailor, or maybe a journeyman cobbler. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you've got 3 shirts to your name, and one of them has teeth marks, possibly human. You're paying 4 pence a week for a bed that smells of cheese and regret. Still, it's better than the stables. Marginally. The other boarders are snoring. You hear them through the thin walls, coughs, mutters, groans. One man always recites psalms in his sleep. Another sleep sings drinking songs. It's like living in a choir of half-dead pirates. You try to rest, but then the unmistakable sensation of tiny legs scuttling across your forearm. You've entered the midnight battle. Georgian beds were war zones. People fought back with everything from boiling water to powdered mercury. You, lacking both, go for the traditional method. You punch the mattress and hope for the best. A satisfying crunch rewards you. It's not exactly victory, but in London you take what you can get. The bed frame groans as you shift. It's a rope bed, literally ropes strung across a wooden frame covered by a sack. Every few weeks the ropes need tightening, otherwise you sink like a doomed souffle. But you've already sunk. You're deep in the trench now. Somewhere beneath you, bugs regroup. By candlelight you examine the weapon of choice, a stubby piece of tallow, lit hours ago and now pooling into soft wax. You eye the melted edge and have a fleeting, terrible thought. What if you tried to cauterize the bites? Fortunately, the rum speaks louder. You take a swig instead. Here's a curious tidbit. In some Georgian households, they'd line bedposts with chalk circles. Not for magic, well, not entirely. The belief was that bugs wouldn't cross powdered lines. Historians still argue whether this worked or just made everyone feel slightly more in control. And bed curtains? Oh, those heavy damask drapes hanging from 4-poster frames? Gorgeous in daylight, but a perfect breeding ground at night. You once met a girl, Margaret, who claimed she found an entire bedbug colony living inside a curtain tassel. That was the end of her romantic interest in anything velvet. Eventually you drift off, not so much sleep as unconscious surrender. You dream of feathers that itch and pillows that purr. You twitch once, twice. A deep bite on your ankle stirs you, and in the blurry dawn, you resolve to do something. Something bold, something drastic. Tomorrow, you'll rub the mattress down with turpentine, or coat it with vinegar, or maybe just light the whole thing on fire and sleep standing up in a barrel. Options are limited. Morning comes in a shade of gray. The windows cracked open just enough to let in the fun mowing, and the sound of horses, and street vendors, and someone vomiting in the alley. London in all her glory. You sit up slowly, check your arms, 8 new bites. Not bad, actually. You stumble over to the basin and splash your face with water that's been sitting since yesterday. It's ice cold. You feel more awake and slightly more bitter. You squint at the bottle of rum. Technically, it's a cleaning agent, but also technically, you're pretty sure it's breakfast now. Welcome to Life with Bedbugs, Georgian edition. They don't just bite, they shape your routine, your clothes, your mood, and your mild rum dependency. Still, somehow, you're getting used to it. You rub your ankle again, the bite's already swelling. Lovely. Another day begins and you shuffle downstairs with the others, still scratching, still sore, still slightly hungover from either the rum or the mattress fumes, probably both. The boarding house smells of coal smoke, damp wool, and ancient cabbage. You inhale deeply, mostly because it's that or stop breathing entirely. You're not alone in your itch. Everyone's at it, leaning against walls, swatting invisible things, muttering curses into their sleeves. There's an unspoken bond among you all, fellow sufferers in the nightly war. Someone's arm is wrapped in a rag soaked in vinegar. Someone else scratches their scalp like they're trying to dig out treasure. The landlady, Mrs. Gertrude Trim, greets you with the same cheerless nod she gives every morning. She's wearing a bonnet that seems to hold a private grudge. Tea or hot water? She asks. You can't tell if there's a difference. You choose hot water and pretend it's tea. At least it's warm. Back upstairs, your mattress waits like a smug enemy. You stare at it, then lift a corner and inspect the frame. Sure enough, tiny dark specks. Not crumbs, not lint. You know better now. You've become an amateur entomologist by force. That smear? Definitely bug juice. Those little husks? Former lives. You shudder. Bedbug Central is more than your mattress. It's the entire room. The wallpaper peels in long, curling strips, perfect hiding place for 100 six-legged squatters. The wooden slats under your bed are cracked and uneven, offering rent-free real estate to any pest with ambition. You kneel down to inspect and immediately regret it. A small cluster of the invaders scurries toward a dark crevice, and one bold specimen stares back. You name him Harold. You do not like Harold. You borrow a broom from downstairs. It's missing half its bristles and smells faintly of ham. You jab it under the bed and wiggle it around with the determination of someone trying to exorcise demons. Dust flies. So do 2 bugs. One lands in your shoe. You burn that shoe in your mind. Reality offers fewer options. Tonight, you vow, will be different. But first, you venture outside. London streets are alive with clatter and stench. Horses clop past, leaving steaming reminders of their route. Vendors shout prices for turnips and eels. A man plays a fiddle near the bakery, wearing fingerless gloves and an expression of eternal confusion. You pass another boarding house and overhear a conversation. 2 women, loud and animated. I tell you, I soaked the sheets in gin and mint, and they still bit me on the nose, one exclaims. The other nods knowingly. Rum's the trick. You dab it round the bed legs, keeps the little devils dizzy. You file that away. Bed legs? Right. Rum legs. Good. Back in your neighborhood, bedbug gossip spreads faster than news of royal weddings. People trade tips like currency. Hang garlic by the door. Boil rosemary and pour it down the walls. Rub bacon grease on your elbows, masks your scent. You smile politely, you try not to cry. You visit the apothecary next. The bell jingles as you enter a room crowded with bottles, powders, and fumes that threaten to pickle your brain. The shopkeeper peers at you through grimy spectacles. Itch? He asks without preamble. You nod. He points to a shelf. Camphor, also vinegar of four thieves, possibly snake oil. You choose the vinegar. It smells like punishment and tastes worse. You plan to bathe your sheets in it later. Maybe your soul too. Back home, you set to work. You splash the vinegar liberally across the bed frame. It hisses slightly. You try not to interpret that. You smear a ring of candle wax around the posts, muttering ancient curses of your own invention. You sprinkle dried herbs along the floorboards, leftover from someone's failed dinner. You drink more rum. It's not the first time rum's been used this way. In Georgian London, rum was a miracle cure for just about everything. Fever, heartbreak, toothaches, pestilence. People poured it on wounds, into mouths, over beds. A fringe physician once proposed injecting it into the armpits for spiritual cleansing. Historians still argue whether that man was joking or simply very enthusiastic. The real reason rum got so popular? It was everywhere. Thanks to Britain's colonial reach in a particularly enthusiastic sugar trade, rum became the everyman's cure-all. And because it burned like fire and smelled like regret, people assumed it had to work. Tonight, you sleep differently. Not better, just strategically. You place bowls of vinegar at each corner of the bed. You wear 3 shirts. You tuck your trousers into your socks. You even wrap your head in a scarf soaked in mint leaves in despair. Sleep finds you eventually, like a lazy debt collector. The bites still come, but fewer. You imagine the bug gagging on the vinegar, spinning drunk from the rum, muttering in tiny bug voices. He's crazy. Let's go next door. One can hope. Your dreams are strange. You're swimming in rum. The ocean is vinegar. A giant Harold the bedbug chases you across a mattress the size of Hyde Park. You wake up gasping, tangled in your shirt, unsure if it was all a nightmare or just a memory from 2 nights ago. You check your arms. 3 bites, 1 on the neck. You smile grimly. An improvement. Downstairs, Mrs. Trim gives you an approving grunt. You look less perforated, she says, handing you your hot water. You nod, victorious. The man with the vinegar rag notices too. Switch to rum, eh? He asks. You grin. He nods. Smart. You've earned a small reputation now. Not a big one, just enough that someone asks you to help cleanse their cousin's cot down the hall. You accept. You bring your broom, your vinegar, your bottle of rum, and your best Harold slang expression. It's not glamorous. It's not effective, really. But it's Georgian London. And in Georgian London, you don't win the war. You just try not to lose too much skin in the battle. You're lying on your back again, arms spread like some saint of sleep-deprived suffering, when the floorboard creaks. Not from a person, just the slow exhale of wood, trying to forget how many feet have stepped across it barefoot, bug-bitten, and probably drunk. You stare up at the ceiling and wonder how many bedbugs it takes to form a democracy. There's no way to know. But if they did organize, rum would be their greatest enemy, and maybe their prophet. By now, you've heard every rumor about the stuff. Some say if you mix rum with powdered chalk and scrub it into your bed frame, it'll drive the creatures mad. Others insist you must speak to the bugs while applying the rum. Something about letting them know they're no longer welcome, as if they're polite little tenants who just needed a stern letter. You remember how your neighbor Martha did it? She lit a taper candle, tied a rag to a stick, dipped it in rum, and ceremoniously blessed each corner of her bedding like it was being knighted by Saint Alcohol. Her place still got bitten to bits, but at least it smelled festive. In fact, walking through the tenements of London during the height of the bedbug plague was like wandering a distillery. Rum on the furniture, rum in the cracks, rum on the sheets, and rum in the mouths of people who had long stopped pretending it was medicinal. Bedbug control and drinking, inseparable, like damp and wallpaper. You reach for your own bottle. It's cheap, spicy, rough-edged, and probably flammable, which in this context might be a feature. You dab it on your wrists. The sting is almost welcome. Then you pour a little into a dish and set it beneath the bed, a boozy offering to some imagined household spirit. If it helps, it helps. Historians have pieced together countless mentions of alcohol as pest control in Georgian journals, receipts, and letters. Most didn't even find it odd. A housewife in Shoreditch wrote in 1749, "I keep a flask of rum in the cradle to cleanse against bites, and also to steady the nerves of me and the babe. That's multitasking. You visit a neighbor later that day, a butcher named Edwin who swears he's figured it out. Rum, hot brick, and rose water, he says confidently, pointing to a steaming pile on his windowsill. You blink. You soak the brick in the mix, then slide it under the bed. You nod slowly. And it works? Edwin shrugs. It makes the room smell like a drunk garden party, so better than before. That's as close to an endorsement as you're going to get. You ask him how long he's been using rum for pests. He laughs. Since I was a child, Mom used to dab it behind our ears before bed. Said it kept away both bedbugs and bad dreams, mostly kept us sticky. You leave with a small flask of the concoction and a nose full of scorched herbs. Back in your room, you prepare your own hot brick. The process is entirely guesswork. You heat it by the fire, wrap it in a vinegar-soaked rag, sprinkle it with clove, and douse it in rum. It hisses like an insulted cat when it hits the floor. Some part of you knows this is ridiculous. Another part is desperate enough not to care. You seal the door, lie back down, and whisper, "No bites tonight, please." That's another thing. They say talking to your pests calms them, gives you power. Georgian people believed all sorts of things could work against insects if spoken aloud. Whisper your fear, then scratch your foot, one rhyme goes. The bugs will bite you nevermore. It doesn't rhyme well, but that's the least of your problems. Still, you try it. If you bite me, you mutter, I'll soak your children in gin. A threat? A prayer? Who's to say? The smell of the rum brick is actually not awful. It's floral, warm, and faintly medicinal. You fall asleep with a clearer nose and a slightly less itchy leg. Progress. When you wake, it's daylight and oddly quiet. No bites. You sit up, inspect your limbs. Could it be? No fresh welts? You jump up, triumphant. You're free. You did it. And then you find a fat bedbug on your sock. You sigh, not today. But you are improving. You've learned to treat the edges of the room with a little daily rum. You dab your skin, you air the mattress, and you've stopped sleeping with your arms out like an offering. Containment is key. You also learn a fringe trick from a laundress in Cheapside. She soaks her pillowcases in stale beer before drying them in the sun. The bitterness drives them mad, she insists. Also, the smell reminds them of sad taverns. You're not sure if that's metaphor or science. There's a kind of bitter poetry to all this. Londoners fighting an invisible enemy with cheap alcohol, vinegar, and hope. But it's not so different from now. People still make dubious sprays, buy strange powders, and trust online strangers with DIY wisdom. The only thing that's changed is the packaging, and maybe fewer people drink the poison after using it. You start to think of the rum not just as a cure, but as a ritual. Pour, soak, whisper, sleep. It gives you back a sense of control, however false. And in Georgian London, where you can't control much, not the soot, not the sickness, not even your next meal, that illusion is precious. The man 2 rooms down tries to one-up you with something new. He mixes rum with crushed cloves and slices of lemon peel. Says it's bug banishment with class. His room smells like festive soup. He still gets bitten, but he swears the bites are smaller. That night, you do the same. You even hum a tune while applying it. Something about no bugs on my elbows, no pests in my beard. It helps. You smile. And that's the thing, this whole war, this ridiculous nightly routine is about reclaiming the bed. Your only private space in a world that's too crowded, too loud, too buggy. You're not eradicating, you're surviving. One bite, one drop of rum at a time. You're getting cocky now. A week has passed with only minor skirmishes, no major bug bites, no blood spots on your linen, and your ankles, for once, don't resemble a connect-the-dots puzzle. You strut down Fleet Street like a man who's found religion in a bottle of rum and a brick. But as any seasoned sufferer of Georgian life will tell you, peace and pest control is always temporary. It starts innocently. You forget to douse the foot of the bed one evening. You're running late from the tannery, your hands raw from lying goat hide. You stumble in, exhausted, fling off your boots, and flop into bed without even whispering threats to the bugs. Rookie move. In the middle of the night, you wake to the dreaded sensation. Tiny pincers at work on your calf. Then another. You swat, flail, curse, slap the wall. The bugs are back, and they've brought reinforcements. It's like they knew. Like Harold, their tiny six-legged leader, was watching your every lazy move and said, "Tonight, boys, he's vulnerable." You light the candle. One lands on your wrist. You catch it, triumphant, and then immediately regret seeing its squirming body up close. A black speck with legs like wire and a crunch you'll hear in your sleep for weeks. You flick it into the fire. Welcome back to square one. Morning comes gray and greasy. Rain spits sideways. You trudge to the apothecary again, defeated. The shopkeeper raises an eyebrow. You missed a spot, didn't you? You nod grimly. He grins. They always know. Bedbugs, smarter than Parliament. You buy more vinegar and a pouch of alum powder. It's rumored to repel pests, though possibly just by making everything taste like regret. You also grab a small vial labeled camphor tincture, used with judgment. You are not in the mood for judgment. Back home, you scrub, you douse, you mutter. You blend alum and vinegar into a paste and paint it onto the bed frame like some deranged decorator. The room now smells like a hospital had a one-night stand with a barrel of pickles. You lay a new trap too, a wide, shallow dish of rum beneath the bed, rimmed with mint oil and crushed pepper. You call it the Bedbug Bermuda Triangle. May all tiny invaders vanish forever. But the bigger question remains, why rum? Historians puzzle over this, even today. There's no one answer. Some say it was simply availability. Rum was cheap, accessible, and potent. Others argue it was symbolic, fire in a bottle, a cleansing spirit, a way to reclaim dominion over one's filth-laced environment. A few even speculate it had actual repellent properties due to its high alcohol content and pungent, sugary scent that may have disrupted insect pheromone trails. Historians still argue whether rum truly repelled bedbugs or if it just made people too drunk to notice they were being eaten alive. Either way, it became a staple of Georgian pest science, which wasn't science so much as chaos wrapped in a powdered wig. Scientific thinking in the 1700s was ambitious. You had gentlemen, natural philosophers, proclaiming that bedbugs were born from dust and human sin. One clergyman claimed they appeared only in immoral households, which says more about his marriage than his knowledge of entomology. Another theory held that bedbugs could be driven out with music. Yes, music. A violinist in Whitechapel was convinced his nightly sonatas made his mattress uninhabitable to the deviant insect. His neighbors complained of the noise, his bedbugs unbothered. Still, you try your own experiments. You tap the bed frame with a spoon before sleeping. You hum softly while spreading your rum paste. You hang a lavender sachet over the pillow because why not? If anyone questions your methods, you'll just quote the classics. Better odd than itchy. Your reputation continues to grow. Mrs. Trim refers to you with a snort as our little bug doctor. You take it as a compliment. Neighbors ask for your paste recipe. One man even offers you a boiled egg in exchange for a bed cleaning consultation. You accept. Protein is rare. But this is London. Your bed is your sanctuary and your battlefield. And while the bugs are persistent, so are you. Some nights are worse than others. After a particularly heavy rain, the walls sweat. The mattress soaks up the damp. You spot a cluster of bugs near the baseboard and realize the nest has moved closer. Bold, territorial. You're dealing with an evolving enemy, so you escalate. You fashion bed leg traps from shallow dishes filled with oil and a ring of salt. You line the mattress seams with crushed chalk and powdered alum. You soak your nightshirt in lemon juice, dry it over the fire, and wear it like armor. You even write a warning note to the bugs, place it under the pillow. Bite again and I will burn this entire street down. That night, you sleep like a king. No bites, no crawling, just the gentle creak of wind against the shutter and the faint smell of lemon and rum. You wake up feeling powerful. You're not alone. Across the city, people are getting creative. A widow in Southwark lines her wallpaper with dried rosemary. A shoemaker in Lambeth builds a hammock to sleep suspended from ceiling beams. He calls it sky sleeping. He still gets bitten, but less so. And in Holborn, there's talk of a gentleman who commissioned a full brass bed with smooth posts and detachable parts. No cracks, no crevices. They say he hasn't scratched in months, but he also sleeps with a pistol and suspects every creak is a rebellion. This is the world you live in, a place where survival requires imagination, where pest control is part chemistry, part folklore, and part theater. You once overheard a preacher say that bedbugs are divine punishment. You prefer to think of them as tiny con men, persistent, itchy, but beatable if you've got rum, vinegar, and stubbornness in equal measure. That night, before sleep, you do your ritual. Rub rum on your wrists, speak your oath to Harold and his army, and lie back on a bed that smells faintly of citrus and triumph. You might be poor, overworked, and living in a room with mushrooms growing in the corner, but you're not powerless. And tomorrow, you might just sleep through the night. The sun blinks through your window with the brightness of someone who's never had to share a bed with insects. You sit up, bleary-eyed, half-tangled in your lemon rum-infused nightshirt, and take immediate stock of your limbs. Right ankle? Clean. Left forearm, just freckles. Neck? A single bump, but wait, old scar, not a bite. Victory again. You shuffle to the basin, splash your face with water colder than your enthusiasm for work, and stare at yourself. Your skin's slightly sticky from the nightly concoction of defensive potions, but you're starting to wear it like a badge. You're not just surviving, you're developing a personal brand. And the brand is vinegar-soaked vigilante. As you eat your breakfast of stale bread and thinner tea, your fellow boarders eye you with suspicion and awe. Word's gotten around, you're the bug charmer now, the rum alchemist. A woman with a mole like a misplaced raisin asks if you'll bless her mattress. You're about to laugh, but she's serious. Later that day, you're invited into her room. You cross the threshold like an exorcist. It's darker than yours, the curtains permanently drawn, the walls bearing faint outlines where furniture once leaned too long. The smell hits first, musk, old cabbage, a note of something vaguely medicinal and vaguely ominous. The bed is sunken in the middle, the mattress stained like a T-map of the British Empire. You hold your breath and nod. You begin the ritual. First, the vinegar wash, long strokes along the bed frame, then the alum paste, carefully applied to cracks and joins. A flick of chalk across the baseboards. Finally, the pièce de résistance, a drizzle of rum mixed with peppermint oil along the seams. You hum a tune you made up on the spot, something between a lullaby and a threat. She watches with the reverence of someone observing surgery. When you're done, she presses a warm, wrinkled hand to your arm. "You're a kind of doctor, you know," she says. You don't correct her. You just accept the mashed turnip she gives you in thanks and wonder if this is what medical school feels like. The truth is, you've begun to take pride in your methods. They might not be foolproof, but they work more often than not. And in Georgian London, that's a miracle on par with indoor plumbing. You keep experimenting. One evening, you blend bay leaves and vinegar into a strong-smelling soup and dab it on your pillow. Another night, you try clove water under the bed. You learn which herbs hold their scent and which just turn to mold. You learn to rotate your tactics, lest the bugs adapt. You even begin drawing little bug skulls in chalk near the corners of your bed as a psychological tactic. If it works on humans, it might work on bedbugs. And then comes the real challenge, the nightshirt. Your current one is fraying at the collar, the fabric stiff with repeated vinegar soaks. So you make a new one, cobbled together from leftover linen and a patch of curtain you borrowed from the hallway. You soak it in a potent mix of lemon juice, turpentine, and bay rum. You hang it near the fire, let it dry into what can only be described as a crunchy sheet of citrus armor. Putting it on feels like wrapping yourself in a mildly aggressive salad, but it works. That night, you sleep like a man buried in herbs. No bites, no bugs, just the soft thud of Mrs. Trim chasing rats in the hallway and the distant clop of a milkman's cart. The next morning, you visit the local laundress, Agnes, whose tiny shop smells perpetually of steam, starch, and gossip. You bring her your experimental shirt and ask how to make it less weaponized. She cackles, pulls out a bottle of lavender water, and instructs you to add it after the vinegar soaks. "It confuses them," she says, "and calms your nerves, which are looking frayed, love." You thank her and exchange pest stories. She tells you about a woman who swore by sleeping with a slab of onion under her mattress. Another bathed her dog in brandy and claimed it acted as a perimeter guard. Agnes just rolls her eyes. Most of them don't want cures, they want curses. She's not wrong. Bedbugs became the scapegoat for everything. A restless night? Bedbugs. Bad dreams? Bedbugs. A broken romance? Bedbugs. You start to suspect Harold has more influence over your fate than your landlord. Still, there's a kind of community forming around this shared misery. You hear whispers of a man across the river who's developed the tonic, a blend of rum, vinegar, crushed wormwood, and 2 secret ingredients. Some say it kills on contact. Others say it summons more bugs just to mock your efforts. You're tempted to try it, but it costs 2 shillings, and you're not made of coin. Instead, you refine your own blend. You call it the trim solution in secret honor of your battle-hardened landlady. It includes 2 parts cheap rum, 1 part white vinegar, a teaspoon of crushed clove, a sprig of rosemary, a whisper of mint, and critically, an aggressive attitude. You soak a rag in the mix and slap it onto your bedpost every night like a warning sign. Some nights you even dream of the bugs packing their tiny suitcases and marching out in shame. You wake up grinning, and just when you start to believe you've won the war, you find one. In the corner, on the windowsill, bold, fat, defiant. You stare at it, it stares back. You grab a spoon, you duel, you win. But you realize this isn't over. It never will be. Because fighting bedbugs in Georgian London is like trying to dry laundry in the fog. It's constant, it's frustrating. It's a full-time job you didn't apply for. But you've gotten good at it. No, not perfect, but skilled enough to turn this nightly chaos into a rhythm. So you rinse your shirt in lavender water, tighten the ropes on your bed, freshen your rum traps, and whisper your nightly spell. Harold, if you bite me tonight, I will invent a powder named after your corpse. You sleep peacefully, almost smugly. You wake in darkness, not the peaceful, hushed kind, but the kind that smells like smoke and panic. There's shouting in the hallway, the unmistakable clatter of someone dropping a chamber pot, a child wailing in one of the upstairs rooms. You stumble out of bed, bump your shin on the nightstand, and grab your candle. Smoke curls under the door. You fling it open to find Mrs. Trim in a nightcap, her face glowing in the candlelight with a mix of fury and disbelief. "He's only gone and done it," she cries, gesturing toward the stairs. "Bloody fool tried to fumigate with brandy and a poker." You blink. Tried to what? But you already know. You follow her down to the first floor, where the scene unfolds like a tragicomedy. Edwin, the butcher from 2 floors up, stands shirtless in a cloud of vinegar and scorched rum vapor, looking like a disappointed ghost. His mattress is half smoldering, his floor slick with a brandy, and the fire bucket is nowhere in sight. "I read it in a pamphlet," he wails, "said to boil the vermin out with holy spirits and flame." You peer into his room. The bed is a blackened ruin, the wallpaper blistered. The air smells of pepper, mint, and poor decisions. And somewhere under it all, the faintest tinge of burnt bug. You cough. "Did it work?" He shrugs. "I think so, but I may never sleep again." Fumigation, it turns out, was one of the more dramatic approaches to bedbug removal in Georgian London. Before the concept of safe practice existed, people tried everything flammable, noxious, or violently scented to chase out the pests. Sulfur was popular. So was vinegar steam, tobacco smoke, and even, when all else failed, gunpowder. There was even a trend of using burning coals placed under the bed frame, the theory being that heat and smoke would rise and kill the bugs in the straw. What usually happened instead? The bed caught fire, or the person sleeping in it woke up with burns and bedbugs. You recall one neighbor, a tanner named Giles, who believed heating his bed with irons would do the trick. The mattress went up in flames in under 5 minutes. The bugs? Probably just relocated to the curtains. But despite the danger, fumigation held a strange allure. There was something satisfying about attacking the bugs with visible, scorching force. The hiss of vinegar over coals, the billowing of smoke like a battlefield. For once, the war felt like it had a weapon that looked like a weapon. Of course, the bugs usually came back. You help mop up Edwin's floor, gagging at the potent mix of scorched rum and boiled pepper. He insists on offering you half a meat pie in thanks. You accept, mostly because it's the first time this week you've eaten something without mold on it. Back in your room, you think long and hard. Could fumigation work? With less fire? You ask around. One woman uses stewed onion peels and garlic skins boiled over a brazier. The stench lingers, she says proudly. Nothing wants to live here. You nod. That tracks. Another swears by rosemary and lavender boiled in vinegar. She walks around the room swinging a ladle like a priest at a plague house. Purifies everything, she mutters, even your conscience. You try both methods over the next week. Your room becomes a rotating museum of smells. One night it's garlic burnt vinegar. Another, it's a cloud of musty rosemary and cloves. Your clothes soak up the fumes, so do your dreams. You begin dreaming of herb gardens on fire. But the bugs stay away, for now. Historians note that fumigation in this era was as much a psychological balm as a practical one. People needed to do something, even if that something was entirely ineffective or actively dangerous. They couldn't see microbes. They couldn't Google remedies. They had no pest control hotline. All they had was instinct, desperation, and an alarming amount of access to open flame. You even find a pamphlet in a bookshop, wedged between sermons and horse care guides. It's titled, A Thorough Defense Against Housebed Vermin and Their Infernal Kin. It features woodcut illustrations of smiling women, waving herbs and terrified insects fleeing a smoking bedpost. You buy it for a halfpenny. Inside, the instructions read like a potion book. Steep the rind of 1 orange in strong spirits for 7 days. Heat gently while chanting the Lord's Prayer twice. Anoint the window ledges and door frame with the resulting infusion. Should you glimpse the creature, rebuke it soundly and extinguish with boot or curse. You can't resist? You try it. You chant, you stew, you sprinkle orange-infused brandy on the window, then you wait. Nothing happens, except the window now smells vaguely like fruitcake, but it comforts you. In the war against bedbugs, sometimes ritual works better than reality. Of course, not everyone was so experimental. Some just gave up. They threw out their beds, slept on benches, or moved house entirely. One of your neighbors began sleeping in the pub, claimed the beer fumes were better than the bugs. Another took to napping in church pews until the priest caught him and began his own rant about bedbugs' judgment. Still, your methods catch on. Others try vinegar washes. They borrow your alum paste. They ask about your mint oil tricks. You become, informally, the fumigator without fire. There's something almost noble about it. You, the apprentice, nobody noticed 6 months ago, now helping half the streets sleep better. A walking arsenal of chalk dust, herbal smoke, and endless sarcasm. One night, a new boarder moves in, a tall man with a scar across his temple and a deep distrust of furniture. I hear you have a way with pests, he says, setting down a bundle of shirts that smell like tallow and tragedy. You nod. I know a few things. He lifts his mattress. Bugs scurry. You don't flinch. You just reach for your rum bottle and chalk. Let's begin, you say, like a man about to perform sacred rites. Because in a world where even your own bed turns against you, there's comfort in the ritual. And there's power in the smell of rum. You never imagined aristocrats itch too. But here you are, invited, summoned, to a townhouse in Soho, where the wallpaper is imported, the doorknobs are brass, and the stair creaks like it's trying not to. You're ushered in by a powdered servant with a nose too high and trousers too tight. He sniffs as you pass. You smell like vinegar and bay leaves. He smells like judgment. Lady Crowthorne will see you upstairs, he says, as if you're not carrying a sack of herbs and a bottle of cheap rum like some apocalyptic apothecary. Up you go. The lady in question is standing beside a bed that looks like it could house a small choir. Silk hangings, goose-down pillows, carved posts with cherubs doing scandalous things. And yet, for all its opulence, her expression is one you recognize. The 1,000-yard stare of someone who hasn't slept in a week and is beginning to suspect the bugs are winning in purpose. She doesn't say hello. Do something, she says, eyes fixed on the mattress like it insulted her lineage. You set down your kit, pull back the bedding, and there it is. Evidence, tiny smears, pepper dot droppings, one live intruder, bold as brass, crawling along a seam in the lace trim. You flick it with your thumbnail into a jar. That one's Harold, you mutter. He's a repeat offender. Lady Crowthorne blinks. You name them? Just the persistent ones. You go to work. The silk sheets are too delicate for vinegar, so you stick to the bed frame, Polished walnut, wide gaps, perfect for nesting. You apply alum with a soft cloth. Dab rum along the posts. Dust the corners with chalk and lavender ash. You even sprinkle bay leaves between the mattress and the bedboard. As you work, she finally speaks. I thought this was a problem for the poor. You pause. They're not picky, my lady. They like warmth and blood, and silk doesn't stop either. She says nothing, but her grip on her lace fan tightens. Truth is, aristocrats weren't immune to Georgian bedbug infestations. They were just better at pretending they were. The wealthy often had the most infested homes because they had the most stuff: drapes, trunks, wall hangings, books, carpeting. Every object was a five-star hotel for bugs. One pamphlet from 1752 noted that those of fortune may suffer the bed-biting malady in most invisible manners, owing to their silks and sachets which hide the marks and perfume the stings. In other words, rich people still got eaten, they just smelled nicer while doing it. You finish the treatment, offer a final flourish, a tiny sachet of cloves and dried mint, tied with twine, tucked into her pillow. For charm or placebo, you say. She blinks slowly, then nods. The last boy I hired set the curtains on fire. You manage not to smile. I prefer my methods smokeless. As you're leaving, the servant intercepts you at the door, slips you a coin, and mutters, "For my bed, if you have a moment." He scratches discreetly at his collarbone. You nod. The upstairs-downstairs itch knows no class boundaries. That night, you lie in your own bed with a new sense of justice. The rich itch, the poor scratch. Everyone dances to the same sleepless waltz. You hum a few bars of it as you tuck your blanket in, mentally counting the bites you didn't get today. 0, that's something. The next morning, Mrs. Trim delivers a note. Folded tight, sealed with wax. Inside, your services were most effective. I have slept. This is historic. Yours, C. Attached is a silver sixpence. You almost choke. A sixpence buys a week's food, or a new shirt, or 15 bottles of rum, depending on your priorities. You go for the shirt, rum you can scrounge. The tailor doesn't ask why you want your linen soaked in lemon oil before sewing. He just nods, mutters something about fashionable eccentrics, and gets to work. Your fame spreads quietly. Not all glory is loud. You hear of a stable boy who sings your paste recipe while brushing horses. A widow near the dock swears by your vinegar blend, though she adds her own twist. Pickle juice. Claims it makes the bed taste like regret. You're not sure whether that's a deterrent or a condiment. One foggy evening, a carriage pulls up outside the boarding house. You're summoned again, this time to Mayfair. The footman hands you a slip of paper. Her ladyship requests utmost discretion. It reads, and please no smoke. Last time the drapes perished. You chuckle. Mayfair's worse than you imagined. Gilded moldings, paintings of ancestors with the same judging brows. And in the guest wing, a bed so large you could park livestock in it. Yet there, between the fine Egyptian cotton sheets and the polished brass posts, bedbugs more than you've seen in weeks, marching like tiny red infantry. You don't flinch, you don't even sigh. You pull out your kit, pour your rum, and whisper to Harold. He's always the first. You're bold, I respect it, but this isn't your empire. You clean, you soothe, you disinfect, you dust with mint and rue and a hint of camphor. The mattress hisses with every rub, like it's offended by your peasant potions, but they work. A week later, you receive another note. Sleep restored, consider yourself a gentleman. Lady H. You wouldn't go that far, but the respect, that's real. And so is the itch of class boundaries starting to blur. Because Georgian London is learning what you already knew. Bugs don't care if your bed is straw or swan feathers. They don't check titles. They don't skip the wealthy out of politeness. Everyone itches, but not everyone knows what to do about it. You do. It's market day. You step into Covent Garden with your collar up and your nostrils braced. The air is a whirlwind of roasted chestnuts, horse sweat, fish guts, perfume wig powder, and somewhere in there, miracle cures by the cartload. The stalls sprawl in every direction, a carnival of questionable medical advice and glorified lies. Barkers shout over each other, waving bottles, bundles, and boiled roots in the faces of passers-by. One man balances a dead rat on his shoulder while selling rat-repelling tonic. Another promises his tickle tincture will cure melancholy and dandruff. But you're here for one thing only, new bedbug cures. And apparently, so is half of London. The pest cure aisle, unofficial as it is, buzzes with business. You elbow past a pair of washerwomen arguing over the effectiveness of vinegar versus turpentine and approach the first table. It's covered in small corked bottles labeled Dr. Blevins Bonafide Bedbane. A poster flaps behind it, illustrated with a cartoon of a bedbug exploding in a puff of satisfaction. Only a farthing a vial, the seller bellows, guaranteed to purge even the most persistent critter. Killed the bugs in my uncle's coffin. You don't ask for clarification, you've learned better. You sniff the bottle. It smells like camphor, maybe something sulfuric underneath. You buy it. Research, after all. The next stall offers powders. The sign reads, glass dust for mattress edges. Shreds the devil's army. You pause. Actual glass? The seller nods solemnly. Finely ground, very sharp. Sleep carefully. You do not buy that one. Then there's the woman selling sachets of dried nettles mixed with rabbit dung, claiming the blend stuns the bugs spiritually. You arch an eyebrow. Is it the dung or the theology that stuns them? She shrugs. Maybe both. I just know I don't itch no more. You move on. Across the way, a boy no older than 12 is hawking little wooden charms etched with Latin phrases. Keeps bugs out your bed and devils from your soul, he says wide-eyed. 3 for a penny. You buy one. Not because you believe it'll work, but because he looks like he believes you might. And then there's the star of the market, Reverend Blight's Bedbug Bible Balm. He's standing on a crate, arms spread, hair wild with evangelical fervor. Friends, do not allow these 6-legged sins to suck your blood and damn your dreams. My balm is blessed by God, Ghost, and Governor General. He holds up a tin of thick, white paste and smears it on a ragged cushion. No bite shall cross this line. No pest shall breach this blessing. People line up, coins in hand. You ask what's in it. Clove oil, lard, and holy water, he says. Also possibly some radish. You buy a tin, not because you trust it, because you've learned to try everything. Back home, your room is a museum of pest control history. Shelves lined with Ishzai tins and bottles. Walls dotted with pin sachets and notes in your own cramped script. You test the balm on a corner of the mattress. Strong clove smell, greasy texture. You'll sleep on the other side tonight. It's not the first bizarre cure you've tried, not even the top 5. There was the time you soaked a bedsheet in stale beer and lavender water. Turned out oddly relaxing, though you woke up mildly fermented. Or the attempt with crushed fennel seeds and lye soap, which cleaned the room but burned your elbows. Once, on a dare, you slept wearing an onion tied around your neck. You smelled like a soup. The bugs still bit you, but with visible hesitation. Still, these market concoctions are fascinating. Not because they work, necessarily, but because of what they say. About fear, about desperation, about the endless human instinct to fight discomfort with creativity. Historians today sift through ledgers and letters and find hundreds of such remedies. Many contradictory, most ineffective, all earnest. A list compiled in 1781 included slaked lime powder under the mattress, burnt goose feathers waved through the room, a circle of broken eggshells beneath the bed, drinking wormwood tea before sleep, hanging a dead mouse in the corner for insect diversion, and of course rum, always rum. And the market's still not done. You see a man selling sleeping bells, tiny brass chimes hung above the bed frame, meant to ward off pests with soft, constant jingling. The vibrations unsettle their nerve, he shouts. You buy one, why not? That night, your room smells like cloves, lavender, rum, and disappointment. The sleeping bell tinkles with every breeze. You lie on the edge of the bed like someone playing freeze tag with the linen. The bugs don't bite. You're not sure if that's because of the balm or because they're stunned into confusion. You dream of giant bugs walking the market, arguing over which human repellents work best. In the morning, you document everything. You've started keeping a journal, the Itch Compendium. Part diary, part experimental record, part cautionary tale. You paste in samples of remedies. Draw tiny sketches of your traps. Write down which concoctions burned, which stained, which made the landlord faint. It's becoming a sort of legacy. You wonder half seriously if someday someone might read it and laugh or actually learn. Because behind every ridiculous remedy is a tiny thread of truth. Maybe mint oil does confuse their scent. Maybe rum is a mild deterrent. Maybe bells keep you sane just by making you feel like someone's doing something. And maybe, just maybe, what really works isn't the clove oil or the chalk. Maybe it's the ritual, the act of reclaiming your space, one scratchy night at a time. You seal your tin of Reverend Light's balm, tuck it beside the others, and chalk a fresh circle on the bed frame. Outside, London coughs and shuffles through the fog. Inside, you lie back and whisper, as always, "Not tonight, Harold." The spoon slips from your hand and clatters to the floor. You don't bother picking it up. You're too deep into your latest invention, the anti-itch fortification barrier system, a name you made up 5 minutes ago, consisting mostly of old shoelaces, a candle stub, and 4 ceramic bowls filled with rum and vinegar. It looks like a child's science project, if the child were sleep-deprived and slightly flammable. Welcome to your new phase, DIY pest control genius. It started simple, grease on the bed legs, chalk rings, the classics. But now, after months of experimentation and more sleepless nights than a gravedigger at plague time, you've gone full inventor. Today's setup involves suspending your mattress with rope over a floor slicked in lamp oil. If the bugs come crawling, they slide. If they come flying, well, you'll cross that bug bridge when you get there. You're not alone in your creativity. Your neighbor, Ada the laundress, has started lighting 3 candles at the foot of her bed each night, not for light, but for smoke. She swears it makes the bugs dizzy. "I know one fell off my sheet trying to walk straight," she tells you, nodding solemnly over her laundry line. Down the hall, young Thomas has wrapped his entire bed in muslin, then soaked the muslin in mint tea and hung a clove sachet from the ceiling. His room now smells like a monastery having a nervous breakdown. It's becoming a movement, a neighborhood guild of itchy engineers. No one says that out loud, but you feel the camaraderie every time someone shares a new idea, a new powder, a better string for suspending sachets from rafters. You begin sketching. Diagrams of the most successful setups. A corner bowl trap that's scored you 3 bugs in 2 nights. A mattress lift system made from broom handles and old shoelaces. A ceiling hung net that falls with a tug if you hear scuttling. There's even talk of a bedbug tournament, a contest to see whose traps work best. The idea started as a joke, but people are tired and itchy and desperate for entertainment. Plus there's rumor of a prize, a tin of actual French soap. One evening, Mrs. Trim announces she's received a letter. Not from family, from the publisher of the Weekly Chronicle of Domestic Sciences. They want to know about the rum gentleman of Fleet Street, that's you apparently, and whether your methods might be worth printing. You snort. Tell them I accept, as long as they don't expect me to stop using rum for everything. That night, you celebrate by trying out a new recipe. Powdered alum, camphor tincture, and mashed elderberries. It stains everything purple but smells oddly pleasant. You call it elder defense. Your room now looks like an alchemist exploded. Still, you sleep better. DIY pest control in Georgian London wasn't just about survival. It became identity, a way of saying, I won't go quietly into the itchy night. People sewed their own sachets, invented their own sprays, boiled furniture, tacked dried herbs under floorboards, rubbed bedposts with garlic, onion, even honey mixed with soot, a method from a sailor you don't recommend. Historians have since unearthed journals from this period filled with diagrams and margin notes on pest control. Mint stings the nose, bugs hate it, or clove water equals success. Only when chanted over. Others left more cryptic instructions: circle the bed, salt, pray, sleep. You add your own thoughts to the record. Your growing journal now includes, oh no, recipes labeled worked, sort of worked, and will burn down house. A list of known heralds and their favorite hiding places. A quote, it is not the bug that defeats us, but our own impatience. You attribute this to yourself and underline it twice. One day, a boy knocks on your door. He's from the next street over. Says his sister heard about your traps. Asks if you'll help. You bring your chalk, your paste, and your usual phrase, I take coin or a good boiled egg. She gives you both. Her room is small, clean, but riddled with the telltale signs. Faint smears, specks on the wall, the ghostly imprint of a bug hiding in a curtain fold. You work in silence while she watches, tense, hopeful. You show her the salt trick, the peppermint cloth, how to light the vinegar safely without setting fire to the lace. When you finish, she thanks you, says her name is Ruth, asks if you've considered selling your methods. You blink. Sell the traps? Sell the whole thing. People want sleep. You give them that. The idea rattles around in your skull like a loose marble. That night, you can't sleep. Not because of bugs, those are blessedly few now, but because your brain won't stop designing. A rum trap kit for travelers, a folding net for guest beds, a handbook, maybe illustrated with jokes, to make the whole thing less dreadful. You dream of a shop, shelves lined with sachets, bottles with your initials, a sign that reads, "The Bedbug Gentleman, Cures, Charms, and Cordials." The next morning you start small. You wrap sachets in linen, seal jars of mint chalk paste, and write a short pamphlet, just 5 pages. You title it, "The Itch Stops Here." You hand it out at the market. 2 people laugh. One asks for 5 more copies. Another trades you a roll and says her sister's plagued by bugs in Clapham. You're becoming more than a helper. You're a supplier. And it feels good, even as you step over puddles, even as London coughs and huddles in smoke and fog, you walk taller. Because tonight someone might sleep better because of your tattered satchel of herbs and vinegar. And that's better than sleep. You're sitting stiff-backed in a theater seat somewhere in the mid-tier rows of the King's Theater in Haymarket. The play's begun, but you're not watching it. You're scratching. A slow, deliberate itch, upper thigh just above the stocking seam. It's not the sort of itch you can address politely in public. So you sit frozen, eyes fixed on the stage where an overly powdered actor wails about betrayal in iambic pentameter, while under your breeches, something 6-legged is staking its claim. Welcome to Theater Night in Georgian London, a world of tragic monologues, overpriced oranges, and furniture that bites back. Theater seats in this era aren't padded in velvet because it's elegant. They're padded in velvet because velvet hides things, like dust, like moths, and yes, like bugs. You didn't think to bring a vinegar sachet. You didn't rub your legs with bay oil. You were off your game. And now you pay the price. As the audience gasps at a dramatic sword fight, you discreetly reach down and flick at your britches. Something tiny skitters down your calf. It's bold, it's fast, and it's probably headed for someone in the orchestra pit. The Georgian Theater, in all its scented, powdered grandeur, is a perfect breeding ground for bedbugs and their ilk. Packed crowds, heavy upholstery, curtains thick enough to smother a goat, cushions rarely cleaned. Add in the fashion of the day, elbow-to-elbow bodices, multi-layered coats, and wigs like miniature haylofts, and you've got an insect paradise. You shift uncomfortably as another itch blooms behind your knee. You're not alone. To your right, a gentleman with a ridiculous cravat is slowly scratching under his lapel. To your left, a woman in a towering feathered hat dabs at her wrists with a cloth that smells faintly of lemon and something scorched. The lights flicker, not from electricity, there is none, but from the chandeliers of tallow candles, which drip wax and occasionally sputter ominously. Between the rising heat, the unwashed air, and the insects crawling just out of view, you begin to suspect that Georgian theater was as much endurance trial as entertainment. There were efforts, of course. Ushers often dusted the seats with crushed thyme or camphor between shows, but that was mostly to mask the scent, not to cleanse. Some managers paid extra for seat fumigation, which involved dragging smoldering trays of wormwood through the aisles between matinees. The audience would return to a hall reeking of bitter herbs and sweat, but the bugs? Still there. Historians have found notes in theater ledgers detailing insect expenses. These included vinegar purchases, biting powder, no one's sure what that meant, and even extra staff hired to inspect and press seats before noble guests arrived. One account from 1764 tells of an earl's daughter who leapt from her seat mid-performance, screaming that something had bit her spine and whispered. The actress on stage didn't break character. She was also itching. You leave the theater that night covered in drama, sweat, and possibly lice. You vow never again to attend without protection. Back home, you set to work designing a portable defense kit. It includes a small vial of mint oil, a sachet of dried lavender and bay leaves, a square of linen soaked in elderberry paste, a chalk stick for marking cursed chairs, and a collapsible paper fan for wafting suspicious air from suspect cushions. You pack it all into a hand-sewn pouch, stitch your initials onto it, and name it the Itch Kit. You bring it everywhere, and you begin to notice something odd. People are following your lead. You see a butcher at the tavern mark his stool with chalk before sitting. A baker wears lavender sprigs on his lapel. Someone at the apothecary asks if you know that lad with the anti-bite paste. You smile. You've become a trend. You even hear whispers at the market that some theatergoers now demand rum scrub seating before they attend. You don't know whether to laugh or be proud. You do both. But not everyone is amused. One evening, a stern woman approaches you near the docks. Dressed in morning black, face sharp as a hawk, she jabs a finger at your chalk-covered coat. "You're the reason my tenants think they can cure filth with herbs," she snaps. You blink. Are they still scratching? She glares. No, but they've also begun to question the rent. It makes sense. In a city where suffering was often accepted as normal, solutions are dangerous. They give people ideas, confidence, hope. You walk away with a strange sense of accomplishment and just a hint of paranoia. That night, you test a new theory. Bugs don't just hide, they communicate. You're convinced of it. So you experiment with scents, placing different blends at each corner of the bed, trying to see which side stays bite-free. You create a grid, you keep notes. After 2 weeks, the clear winner is left rear corner, camphor and lemon, right front, rum and mint. No effect, lavender and clove, you weep at the betrayal. You add this to your growing pamphlet. It now runs 20 pages. The itch stops here. Expanded edition. You've begun dreaming about illustrations, but it's not all glory. You catch a cold from too many damp nights. One of your sachets leaks in your pocket, and you spend a day smelling like moldy pie. And your bed frame, blessed, battle-worn, beloved, finally snaps under your latest pulley-rigged defense structure. You sit on the floor surrounded by rope and splinters, and for the first time in weeks, you laugh so hard you cry. The battle against bedbugs isn't glamorous, it's absurd. It's sticky, it stains your shirts and alienates your dates, but it's also yours, a fight you've learned to love, not for the itching, but for the ingenuity it demands. You rebuild the frame stronger, add crossbeams for herb placement, line the slats with wax paper, sleep better. And then one night you dream of bugs forming a tiny marching band, playing drums made of walnut shells, and pipes fashioned from broken quills. Harold leads them, waving a tiny banner that reads, "Nice try." You wake up smiling, because they haven't won. Not yet. You wake with sunlight on your face and wait for it, not a single itch, no welt, no faint prickling, no invisible crawl. You sit up slowly, scan your arms and ankles like a suspicious detective, and then, with theatrical flair, toss your blanket back. Still nothing. You chuckle aloud, a rare and reckless thing in a boarding house before tea. Today you walk with swagger. The streets of London are still soot-choked and slurry slick, but you barely notice. You're headed to your favorite stall in the market, Old Maud, the herb lady, who's recently begun calling you the bite doctor. She sells you an entire sack of dried rosemary for half price, whispers that she heard from the bell ringer's wife that your paste worked on her son's ear mites. You decide not to ask for clarification. Back on Fleet Street, there's a new buzz, actual demand for pest defense. A butcher nails up a sign, "Meat clean, no bugs, thanks to the chalk gentleman." A pub owner offers bite-free ale, absolutely just regular ale, but served in cleaned mugs and probably scrubbed stools. You walk past these things like a minor celebrity with a bottle of vinegar in his satchel and confidence in his stride. But something tugs at you, an itch of another kind. Not the skin-deep panic of a bite, but the kind that lingers behind the ribs. You want to know, why does any of this actually work? So you do the unthinkable. You go to the library. The Royal Society's dusty public reading room is rarely visited by your kind. You smell like crushed herbs and public benches. But you're polite. You speak softly. You read for hours, leafing through volumes bound in cracked leather and blotched ink. You find something. A 1722 lecture transcript by a natural philosopher named Giles Beamish, who proposed that insects were drawn to moist heat, stale breath, and linen imbued with oils of the lower orders. He doesn't define lower orders, but you assume he meant people like you. His remedy? Airing, anointing, and abstaining from night sweats. So, worthless. Still, it confirms what you've guessed. Warmth, moisture, and stillness draw them in. Disruption is key. Next to his work, you find something stranger. The Insect Compendium of Miss Lucinda Astorfield, age 11. A child's journal preserved by accident. In it, she writes of bedbugs as night pirates, lists their favorite hiding places, under buttons, behind all eyes, and includes a hand-drawn map of her bed with X's marking bite landings. You nearly cry laughing, but she ends with this: I leave a drop of lemon on each corner and sleep like a knight in armor. They never bite my pillow now. Maybe they don't like courage. You copy that into your own notes. Inspiration strikes. You return home, rummage through your belongings, and construct the Knight's four-point defense system. A dab of lemon oil on each corner of the mattress, a sprig of mint near your pillow, and a full sachet tied just beneath the bed frame. You even draw a small shield on the wall with chalk, not because it'll work, because it might. You sleep like a monarch. The next few days, you tour homes. Yes, tour. People now invite you to inspect their sleeping arrangements. You offer consultations, tips, sometimes only for a bowl of stew or a slice of pear tart, sometimes for a coin. Once, a woman gives you a very aggressive parrot and insists you take it. It screams at bugs, apparently. You name it Pickle. It lives on your windowsill. Not every case is easy. You enter one home where the walls breathe dust and the bed creaks when no one's near it. You lift the mattress and a wave of bugs surges like a curtain lifted in hell. You don't flinch. You've seen worse. You mix an emergency batch on the spot. Strong rum, turpentine, crushed rosemary, and old soap shavings. You scrub, you scrape, you seal the floor cracks with candle wax and prayers. You hand the family a sachet and a copy of your pamphlet. They call you a hero. You demur, but secretly you are very proud. Later that week, you're summoned again to a prison. Someone on staff has read your pamphlet. The guards are getting bitten. So are the prisoners. You stand in a cold, damp cell block, holding a basket of mint bundles and alum paste, surrounded by stone and suffering. You don't judge. Bugs don't care who you are, neither do you. You treat the bunk beds with care. Even help clean a mattress, if you can call a haystack that. You show a guard how to use chalk lines. You hand out sachets. You leave behind dignity where you found none. On the way out, someone taps your arm. A prisoner, gaunt, quiet. He murmurs, they don't bite the mint. They respect it. You nod. Outside, you lean against the wall and breathe in the chill. You've changed something. You don't know what exactly, but it feels like you've tipped the scale just a little. And then, as if the universe wants to balance things, you find one. A bug. On your coat, you flick it off calmly. You don't scream, you don't stomp, you don't curse, you just nod. Harold, still out there, still persistent. But so are you. So you head home, you refresh the chalk lines, replace the rum dishes, wash your shirt in lemon water, feed Pickle, write a new chapter in your journal titled, The Itch in Institutions. And that night you sleep with one arm outstretched, one eye half open, and the vague satisfaction of a man who might not have won the war, but is definitely keeping score. The room you step into tonight is different. Lower ceiling, no curtains, straw mattress barely 2 fingers thick, one oil lamp, no lock on the door. You can smell soot and boiled onions before you cross the threshold. Welcome to the servants' quarters, the overlooked battlefield in the Georgian war against bedbugs. You're here as a favor. A maid named Ellie flagged you down near the apothecary. You're the bug man, ain't you? She said, wiping her hands on her apron. Can you come tonight? It's the pillows. They're twitchy. And now, here you are, elbow deep in linen that feels like it's part of the floor. There are 6 beds in this one room. The air hangs heavy with the scent of fatigue, coal ash, and unspoken complaints. It's not just the bugs that bite down here. Ellie stands beside you, arms folded. We've tried everything, she mutters. Pepper dust, brandy on the seams, even scalding the pillows. She gestures to a flat circle of singed stuffing. That one didn't survive. You nod. You know this story. Servants in big Georgian households were the first awake, the last to sleep, and almost always the last to get the good bedding. No canopies, no drapes, just shared air and shared infestations. You've heard of housemaids sewing pockets in their nightgowns to hide sprigs of lavender. But even that only worked until the lavender turned to powder. Tonight, you're testing a new blend, something bold, something borderline theatrical. You call it the Sixpence Soother, named because that's exactly how much it cost you to make an entire jar. It includes crushed peppermint, lemon peel extract, alum dissolved in rosewater, a whisper of turpentine, and a base of lard mixed with powdered soap. You brought enough for 6 beds. You kneel at the first one, dip your cloth in the mix, and begin with the edges. Always the edges. Ellie watches closely. You ever get tired of this? She asks, voice low. You glance up. Of bedbugs? Daily, but the people? No, that part's worth it. She nods slowly. You ever think they'll just be gone one day? You pause. Not likely, but maybe one day everyone will know how to fight back. She doesn't smile, but she blinks a little slower. That's something. The other girls filter in as you work. 4 in total. One holds a candle stub, another clutches a wool sock like it's armor. They're all wary, but curious. They watch as you scrub, dab, mutter, sprinkle chalk. It's part ceremony now. Each bed gets its treatment. You even leave a sachet of mint under each pillow. Won't it make our hair smell? One asks. You shrug. Better mint than blood. She nods, no argument there. You finish the last bed, wipe your hands on your rag, and sit back. They don't applaud, but they do offer you a slice of boiled carrot saved from dinner. That's currency here. You linger a while, not as a guest, not really, but as a kind of honorary member of the Underground Itch Alliance. You learn that 2 of them have been working since age 9. One once tried to sleep standing against a wall because the bugs couldn't reach her face that way. Another used to light bits of paper near her mattress to create smoke walls. It worked, until she passed out. None of them have had a full night's sleep in months. You ask how the house's master sleeps. Oh, Ellie says with a crooked grin. He's got a brass bed and goose feather duvets, changes the linens twice a week, has the butler dust the drapes. You raise an eyebrow. Does he itch? No, she says, but he will, soon as he takes that trip to Bath and sleeps in the guest house. You leave a sachet behind anyway, just in case. As you head back into the night, the city wraps around you like a coat, cold in the corners, warm in the places you least expect. You pass a group of dock workers playing cards beside a brazier. One scratches his ankle and curses in 3 languages. You toss him a chalk stick. He catches it without breaking eye contact. Cheers, he says. Back at your room, you're greeted by Pickle the parrot, who has now learned to squawk, "Bite me," whenever the candle flickers. You drop your satchel, remove your boots, and check the traps. 4 bugs, 2 still twitching. You smile grimly. Amateurs. You soak a cloth in rose water and rum, wipe down your windowsill, then stretch out on your bed. It smells like lemon and lavender. You breathe deep. Sleep comes easier these days. Not because the bugs are gone, no, they're never fully gone, but because you understand them now. You've studied their habits, learned their cowardice. You've made their lives as miserable as they've made yours, maybe worse. In the half-light, you reach for your notebook. The latest entry reads, servants' quarters, moderate infestation, uniform bedding, high resilience among residents, strong camaraderie, new blend holding steady, recommend further testing in similar conditions. Begin drafting new guidebook chapter. When the bed is not yours, you underline it twice, because that's the core of it, isn't it? This war isn't just against tiny blood-sucking monsters. It's against powerlessness, against resignation, against the idea that itching is inevitable if you're poor, tired, or unlucky. You think of Ellie and the others, curled up now beneath sachets you packed, heads resting on pillows that smell like soap and possibility. You fall asleep with your boots still on, and you dream, not of bugs, not of Harold, but of printing presses, of pamphlets in shop windows, of sachets wrapped in ribbons, of people, even centuries from now, whispering bedtime blessings that start with, "Not tonight," and end with, "I'm ready." You know you've made it when Parliament wants to hear your thoughts. Well, not Parliament exactly, not the wigs and waistcoats in the Grand Hall, but close enough, a friend of a friend who might be a clerk or a copyist, or just a man with enough free time to gossip near political buildings, sends word, "Come to the coffee house on Holborn Hill. There's a fellow with questions about your pamphlet." You go, of course, because when someone says they're interested in your methods, that's either the start of a very good opportunity or a very bad lawsuit. And either way, you're bringing your notes. The coffee house is as foggy as the street outside. Pipes hiss, men argue about taxes, theater, and whose tailor is most dishonest. You spot the contact easily, tall, sober, powdered, and clearly regretting his seat near the door. "Ah, the rum gentleman," he says. You nod, offer your hand. He doesn't take it. "I represent Mr. Elbridge, who represents Mr. Talcroft, who happens to sit on a public health subcommittee." He says this like he's unsure whether it's impressive or embarrassing. You sit. And what exactly does Mr. Talcroft want? He adjusts his cufflinks. There's a growing concern about vermin, infestation, especially in the poor districts. "We've seen your pamphlet, the one with the drawing of the bug in the top hat. It's oddly popular." You smile. "That one's Harold." He clears his throat. "Right, well, there's talk of issuing public guidance, a leaflet, something to educate the masses. You seem to have practical experience." You open your satchel, pull out a copy of The Itch Stops Here, now 42 pages thick and bound with twine. You lay it gently on the table. He raises his eyebrows. "That much?" "I cut half of it," you say. "Remove the poem." He begins leafing through. His expression moves from skepticism to something resembling actual interest. You list ingredients, ratios, notes on application, and emotional stability, you add. "Excuse me?" There's a whole section on how to keep your mind calm during a full room fumigation. He stares, then chuckles, just once. You leave with a promise. If Parliament moves ahead with a public health notice, you'll be consulted. Not officially, of course, not paid, but consulted. That's something. Still, it's more progress than you ever imagined. A year ago, you were scratching in silence. Now people in powdered wigs are asking you about mint oil. You walk home through the drizzle with a head full of plans. By the time you reach your street, a small crowd has gathered outside Mrs. Trim's boarding house. Not for a fire, not for a crime, for you. Someone's put a copy of your pamphlet in the bakery window. Another's selling sachets based on your recipes, calling them Fleet Street fortifiers. And someone's selling candles labeled Bug Be Gone, which smells suspiciously like beef tallow and regret. You don't mind. Let them profit, let them adapt. You're not in it for the money. Though, to be honest, coin wouldn't hurt. You go upstairs, hang your coat, and begin outlining your next idea. A public demonstration. The plan is simple. Gather people in the square. Bring a mattress, infest it if possible. Show them how to clean it, treat it, wrap it, protect it. Make it theatrical. Make it memorable. You even sketch a banner. Sleep without fear, come see the rum cure in action. Mrs. Trim agrees on the condition that no bugs escape into the crowd. If someone's petticoat starts twitching, she warns, I'm not cleaning up the riot. You spend the next week preparing, brewing mixtures, making sachets, rewriting your chalk labels in neater letters. You even teach Pickle the parrot to say, don't let Harold win. He shouts it with increasing accuracy. The day arrives gray and damp. Perfect. Londoners show up for spectacle, and you're about to give them one. You set up a folding table, lay out your tools, place a mattress in the center of the square like it's about to be executed. Then you begin. First, the demonstration of identification. Lifting seams, showing droppings, pointing to husks. The crowd gasps, someone screams, a child laughs. Then the paste applied in deliberate strokes, narrated like a sermon. You explain each ingredient, you tell a brief history of their uses. Someone takes notes, someone faints, not from bugs, just hadn't eaten. You field questions. What if you sleep on the floor? Use rosemary and rum in a ring. Leave a gap so the spirits can exit. What if I am the bug? You need more help than I can provide. Laughter, applause, you can't believe it. By noon, you've sold out of sachets, you've given away 20 booklets. You've invited 6 people to join your experimental test group for new trap designs. That night, you return home exhausted, but elated. Pickle greets you with his usual cry. You hand him a mint leaf. He accepts it with dignity. You lie in bed, arms crossed behind your head, and let your thoughts drift. This is more than a hobby now. It's a movement, a shift. You've begun writing a second pamphlet. From Chalk to Parliament, a personal history of the bedbug uprising. It begins with a sentence, it started with a bite, and it ended with a better mattress. You think of Ellie, of the theater seats, of the parrot, of the first time you poured rum on your wrist and whispered, "Try me." You've changed something. Not the city, not yet, but the way people react to the itch. They fight back now. They believe it's beatable. That matters. You close your eyes, and from the window you hear a familiar voice drifting up from the street. Don't let Harold win. You smile. Not tonight. Not ever. You wake to rain against the window and a faint scratching, blessedly not from insects, but from Pickle the parrot trying to chew the edge of your latest pamphlet draft. He's perched on the windowsill like a proud editor, head cocked, occasionally muttering, "Sachets for everyone." You take the paperback gently. Version 3 of From Chalk to Parliament is looking promising. You've streamlined the opening and added illustrations. Tiny bugs with worried faces, beds wrapped in shields, and of course, Harold, your eternal nemesis, now drawn with a monocle and a tiny suitcase. But today is not a writing day. Today is a cleansing day. Across the city, people are talking, not just about your pamphlet or your demonstrations, but about something larger. Cleanliness. It's become fashionable, even moral, a sign of progress. You might say that your bedbug campaign has sparked something you never expected. The beginnings of a Georgian hygiene movement. It starts in whispers. A merchant's wife insists her husband wash his feet before entering the bedchamber. A bookseller sprinkles mint oil on every spine. A surgeon begins treating his linens with lemon-soaked vinegar and calls it preventive medicine. Public houses hang signs. Our beds are biteless. And the mayor's office? Oh yes, they send word. A letter arrives folded like a formal complaint but sealed with the city's mark. Inside, a brief message. You are cordially invited to assist in the development of a public cleanliness campaign targeting vermin and household pestilence. A stipend shall be offered. It's signed by someone with a surname too long and vowels too few. You almost drop your tea. A stipend for pest work? You run a hand through your hair, consider brushing it, then decide instead to polish your boots. You're going to City Hall. The building itself smells like chalk dust and regret. You're ushered into a drawing room lined with maps of London neighborhoods, tiny flags stuck in various locations, yellow for sightings, red for confirmed infestation, and black for burn it and start over. A small group of men and women, council members, physicians, a priest, sit around a table stacked with ledgers and dried flowers. They greet you with something between curiosity and suspicion. You stand straight. You speak clearly. You explain your work, not as an expert, but as a witness. You describe the rum traps, the chalk rings, the sachets of mint and elderberry, the hours spent whispering threats to Harold and his endless offspring. You pause, then add, I've never claimed to cure a home, only to help people believe they could reclaim it. That line lands harder than you expected. The priest nods. The physician scribbles. A woman with spectacles too large for her nose leans forward and says, "Would you design the city's first official vermin prevention guide?" You blink, then smile. "Yes, but only if I can include a parrot." They think you're joking. That's fine, you're used to people underestimating you. 2 weeks later, you're back in your room, surrounded by drafts, diagrams, and Pickle, who's chewing on the corner of your latest blueprint for a public demonstration titled The Art of the Bed Inspection. You've already hosted 2 workshops in the parish hall. The turnout was better than most sermons. Families brought their pillows. Children asked for Harold dolls. A man tried to sell Bugard shoes lined with chalk soles. You bought a pair. They squeak when wet. You draft your official guide with care. The city is paying you now, but the people, you write for them. For Ellie. For the laundress who boiled her sheets in onion water. For the man who tied chicken feathers to his ankles because his grandmother said it worked. For everyone who scratched in silence and now dares to say enough. You title the new guide, The Citizen's Primer for a Bite-Free London. Inside, Section 1, Identifying the Intruder. Section 2, Creating Safe Sleep Zones. Section 3, Herbal Allies in the Limits of Lavender. Section 4, Fumigation without arson. Section 5, Mental Fortitude for the Repeatedly Bitten. Appendix, Common Mistakes, don't drown your mattress in ale. You also include quotes from children, from housemaids, from yourself, and one from the parrot, printed in big, bold letters. Don't let Harold win. The city prints 500 copies, distributes them at apothecaries, markets, churches. By week's end, someone pins a copy to the wall of a tavern with a dagger. You call that a successful launch. And still, the fight goes on. You're invited to a manor on the edge of town. Fancy place, high windows, fresh paint, but the beds, crawling. You arrive with a small team now, 2 former laundresses, a chimney sweep with a talent for trap setting, and a baker's apprentice who bottles your formulas. You're not just a man anymore, you're a movement. Inside, you kneel beside a gilded bedpost, lift the velvet trim, and reveal a nest of red specks. The lady of the house gasps. You smile gently. They don't care what your name is, ma'am. They care if you're warm and still. You clean the room, you leave instructions, you place a sachet beneath her pillow and remind her to speak kindly, but firmly. The bugs need to know you're in charge. That night, as you return home, you pass street vendors selling knockoffs of your paste. Not a Herald to make their saying tea. Bite Banisher Balm. Rum Guard 1742. You smile. Let them copy. It means the message is spreading. At home, you sit with pickle, tear open a loaf of stale bread, and toast to the quiet revolution. You think back to that first bite, that first failed trap, that first night you whispered to the dark. Not tonight, not again. You've seen what a little knowledge can do. You've watched fear turn to focus. You've helped the weary sleep. And in a city that never stops scratching, that's more than you ever hoped for. You reach for your journal and write, victory, like vinegar, stings at first, but with time it preserves everything worth keeping. Then softly as the candles gutter low, good night, Harold. And for the first time in days, you don't hear a thing. The wind carries a cleaner sound now. Not quiet, no. London's never quiet, but cleaner. The kind of clatter that belongs to buckets sloshing, windows opening, brooms sweeping hard against floorboards. It's subtle, but you notice. You walk past doorsteps that no longer reek of stale rags. You see children hanging laundry on actual lines instead of draping it over hedges like defeated flags. Something's changed. No, you've changed something. It's been 6 months since you handed out your first sachet, since your fingers trembled trying to write "apply twice daily" on a torn piece of butcher's paper, since you whispered threats at invisible bugs like a mad poet in a rented room. And now you're on a lecture list. Not a long one, mind you, just a small speaking circuit hosted in parish halls and libraries, usually somewhere between the cheese wheel raffle and the man who recites tragic ballads about chimney sweeps. But people show up. They sit with notebooks. They bring pillows for demonstration. They care. Tonight, you're presenting in a converted grain warehouse. It smells like straw and soap and ambition. You stand beside a table stacked with rum bottles, chalk sticks, lavender sprigs, alum powder and waxcloth packets, and several well-loved copies of your guidebook. You're halfway through a demonstration when a boy raises his hand. What if, he says, face earnest and pale, you're just too tired to fight them anymore? It hits you harder than you expect. You pause, then walk around the table and sit beside him, voice low. Then you don't fight them that night, you say. You let the sachets do their job. You drink some water. You sleep in a chair. You wait till the next morning. Then you fight again. Because they want you tired, but they don't win unless you quit. He nods. You nod back. You both know you're not just talking about bugs anymore. That evening, someone brings you an idea. It's a page torn from a ledger filled with careful diagrams. A bed frame designed with sloped legs and hollow interiors for herb storage. It's clever, simple. You trace the lines with your finger and look up at the woman who handed it to you. My brother was a carpenter, she says, got bit every night, swore his bones itched. We worked on this before he passed. You blink back something sharp, then ask, may I build it? She nods. The next week, the prototype is born. You name it the Harold Bain frame, made of cheap pine, slanted legs, sealed seams, and a removable tray for paste or sachets. You test it yourself. It works. You publish the schematics. You don't patent it. Why would you? Across town, people start making them. In taverns, in servant halls, in shops that once only sold lantern oil and salted fish. A school teacher even organizes a build-a-bed week for his students. You go, you bring Pickle, who steals a peppermint stick and screams, chew on that, Harold, to a round of delighted applause. Your journal expands. You're up to volume 3 now. It holds everything. Paste recipes, tested and ranked. Trap designs, including the failed ones. Like the bowl of honey that turned into a bee problem. Quotes from children. I gave mine a name so I'd feel less scared. Letters from strangers across the city who claim to sleep better, breathe easier, hope harder. Some send drawings. Others send small pouches of herbs from their own gardens. One man sends a jar of dried insects with a note. Got 'em all, I think. Your move, Harold. You build a small shelf for these things. You call it the victory shelf, not because the war is over, but because it feels good to stack your survival somewhere you can see it. Then one day something strange happens. You don't need the chalk lines. You reach for the stick, pause, and realize it's been 4 nights since a bite. You haven't even scratched in your sleep. Your sheets are unchewed. The traps are empty. You sit down slowly, let it sink in. Not a win, a reprieve. You exhale, then very gently say out loud, I miss Harold a little. Pickle screeches. No, you don't. You smile. You're right. And now the wind down begins. You start planning the final edition of The Itch Stops Here. Not just a manual, a record, a reminder, a thank you note to every soul who ever woke up bleeding and still had the energy to try again. You title it, How We Fought the Night. Inside you write, and this is not a book of cures, it is a book of courage. The cure was always action. The bravery to say not tonight, not again. You make it free. You make 100 copies. You leave them in markets, under pillows, in library nooks, in the coat pockets of people who look too tired to scratch. And one evening, as spring softens the air and Pickle snores on his perch, you pack away your powders. You fold your sachets. You write one last journal entry. I will always check my bed, but I will not fear it. Then you crawl under your blanket, smooth, cool, unbothered. You lie on your back, watch the ceiling, and sleep. Deep, dreamless, bite-free, for once, absolutely beautifully uneventful. So now, as the sounds of Georgian London dim to a hush, and the candles gutter low, let your breathing slow with the rhythm of its quiet streets. The crowds have faded, the vendors have packed their strange powders, and the city, once swarming and itchy and endless, settles into something softer. The linen is warm now. Your traps are in place. The air smells faintly of mint, soap, and the ghost of yesterday's rain. Somewhere, a cat yawns beneath a baker's cart. A clerk scribbles the final line of a ledger and caps the ink with a sigh. And deep beneath it all, the bugs, what few remain, have gone still. No chalk circles tonight, no muttered curses, just silence. You've done enough. You've scratched, you've scrubbed, you've whispered to corners and fought a war with nothing but a sachet and stubbornness. And now you get to rest. No one's gonna bite you here. No Harold. No Harold's cousin, not even Harold's great-grandbug, the one with the limp. Because tonight your room is yours, your bed is yours, and this little victory, it belongs to you. So breathe. Let your fingers unclench. Let the last curl of lamplight soften behind your eyes. Let Pickle say goodnight one final time, and let it all fade into sleep.